Greetings everyone, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of darkness today? I know I am. We're heading through into the nature, to the woods of the world of darkness, once more, deep into the woods this time. We are going to be learning about the Red Talons, one of the tribes of the werewolf community, and a very interesting one. Today will be a little bit interesting because we're going to talk a little bit. Ooh. Anyway. Join my hand. Take it. I'm going to have us go through the gauntlet for the spiritual realms to enter the world of darkness. Your host and guide here, Candace Nara and Dracovin. Of course, remember to give a support here, a little bit of a like, a little bit of a tip by liking, subscribing, and the bell, as we travel through the gauntlet into the world of darkness. And the world where the apocalypse was. Red Talons. Now, where do we start now that we're here? They are, in a way, elusive to us. We are humanity, something they shun. At the very least, they have. And we'll talk about it, because, again, it's one of those things that I've talked about, and we're going to address. 5th edition is a mixed bag when it comes to lore for me, but I do like when I have good information that I can present about it, that I feel like is appropriate to present. I will. And that's where the books today come in. Of course, the core rulebook and player's guide from any edition. I usually recommend W20. That's my favorite edition when it comes to a lot of information. And then, of course, the tribe book, Red Talon tribe book, the two different editions of those. And again, this is one of the ones where, when I was doing my research and looking into the 5th edition version of it, well, it didn't, no adventure, the 5th edition Red Talons has some information and some development that, God, honestly, what? One of those problems sometimes is the mixed bag that is the 5th editions. You know, all this old school is talk about it. I talk about it with Vampire. That's the same case here for Werewolf. There are things going on and things to discuss with it. Anyway, let's start discussing the Red Talons. And this is their symbol. They are a member of the Garou Nation. Again, we're not going to get into the... I'm going to just go through the W20 thing. We'll talk about the 5th edition at the end. So I'm just noting that if you are coming in this from a 5th edition standpoint, I'm talking about from the old history standpoint. So they are a tribe found in the community. As of the W20, they were a tribe that was exclusively lupine in nature, for few medicines. They basically shunned humanity completely and saw them as a blight on Earth. This is all very important. And their totem is Griffin. This is very important ways to look at them and understand the developments and stuff that are within them. So when we look at their history, they don't have history like humans do. The fact is, since they don't have Hamid versions of them, they are mostly connected with wolves. It doesn't mean there isn't an oral tradition in them. They use oral traditions and stories to acknowledge sadness, grief. Concepts of the past are very elusive to them, though. You know, it's just some time ago. When we look at their earliest times, their stories tell that they came directly from Gaia, and they remained the purest Garou, and kept in touch with their original shapes. In their myth, humans were originally prey, and didn't know the laws between predator and prey. It was some gifts of the worm that humans basically became hunters themselves, who could prey about. One of the humans that killed a predator, a wolf, Guy decided to bless the other predators with the task to keep her world in balance. Every predator got a task, while some species who failed at it were demoted to prey status. They claimed like the Apis. The worm, however, came to Guy and reminded her that humans were predators too. And so she has no task left for them. She wished to give her creations a place. Instead, she granted the other predators the ability to interbreed with the humans and teach them. She created the Pharaoh. Basically, and they acquished the taint of the worm through invading human minds. There are some more radical talons that maintain the connection to humanity as a curse inflicted by the worm upon the Pharaoh. Basically, transmitted by relationships with, humans, or even tasting the blood of humans. So yeah. And so to the Red Talons, the Imperigium, the culling of humans, was the original task that the Garou was envisioned for. Yeah. but the corruptive influence of human minds, the other werewolves began to behave like humans, mated with them, they mated with each other, produced the first metas. There was a lot of things that happened and led them away from it. And it led their tribe to splinter into all the other tribes. As humans became bound to human cultures, led to the Concord eventually. So yeah, there's a lot of issues that went on. Basically, they gathered, these group that would be the Red Talons gathered under a powerful Ahroun named Fell's Trees, and confronted the Silverfangs, who were the leaders at the time, when things were beginning to form as what would become the Garou Nation, asking what they're supposed to do about the growing population of humans, now that they were no longer able to call it, post-imperium, of course, and why the wolves' vote had not been counted. He answered they did not know the wolves were a tribe and asked them to the name of it. Fell's Trees pressed on the names were not important, and Fang answered without tribe names, the wolves should be considered a pack of marauding scavengers. This angered Fell Trees, lashed out, leaving a bloody claw mark on the Silverfang's chest, and this Fell Trees proclaimed was the name of his tribe, and wait for an answer, and they became the Red Talons, basically. Talons accept the rule of the Silverfangs as alphas, but they were wary because they watched the extinction of species like mammoths at human hands. During the War of Rage, the Talons trusted the judgment of the Alpha, but they thought the war was born out of humans' hatred and made no sense. Secretly made deals with some of the Korvax, and overtook the stewardship of sacred places of the Gruul. There are many modern Garou who see the Red Talons as complicit werewolves who sought to kill Hamid-born Farah, which insult which they accept to guard their secrets. So, it's an interesting early history in a lot of ways. Because there really isn't an early history. You almost have to tell it from the other Garou standpoint. Now, we head into the Dark Ages. We're beginning to switch things around. The rise of cities and humans. Garou regard other Garou regarded the Red Talons as prophets and mystics that were connected with Gaia in the wild. The Shadows brought prophecies of shadow to the fall of Constantinople. They did suffer under the Flaying Plague, unleashed by the Red Circle against the Garou. They practiced the diminished form of Imperium, where they stalked and attacked humans who ventured in the woods at night. When we get to the Victorian Age, and they made amicable relations with pure tribes. While the people of the pure tribes were humans, and thus responsible for the extinction of species, the Talons respected pure tribes had at least tried to teach them about balance and controlling their breeding impulses. So basically, they saw the people of North America, the natives people, the Native Americans, and the Garou that were connected with them, as they're trying their best, they're doing a good job. They're not perfect, but at very least they're doing a lot better than our kin who were here in Europe and the rest of the world. There were even some isolated Talon septs that within unclaimed territory near the Wendigo and coexist for centuries. As the wilderness and the world shrunk, the wolves were hunted systematically. Many Talons fled to the New World to fight the growing threat of the Storm Eater. In contrast to the relations to the pure tribes, they regard the Bunyip as usurpers and thieves. So they don't even breed with wolves, but with thylacines. Many suspect the Bunyip had killed the native wolves in Australia. The Talons came to Australia bred with dingoes and similar deluded creatures, and thus were susceptible to the worm. Their prejudice led them to start the genocidal War of Tears, which the Talons feel a little regret about. A little. Just a little. Now we get into the modern age. The kinfolk packs are decimated. Wild places recede. Humans continue to choke the planet with pollution, mining, all the kind of terrible things. Talons think they can't win the apocalypse, basically. The construction of reservations, national parks, or zoos are proof that humanity has won. And they can decide which part of Gaia in the wild is spoiled and which not. So they issued the Winter Council. In order to address the excessive growth of humanity, the Winter Council is to reinstate the Imperium in secret. Winter packs are recruited from Lupus and raised in isolation, then unleashed against human cities. The first study was Montreal, and the Talons planned to expand their activity. In Europe, Margrave, Kon-Eve Soko has allied with the Talons by allowing them to call a specific group of humans, leading to most European Talons supporting him as the new Alpha. With the arrival of the Red Star and vision of the destruction of a great monstrosity in Bangladesh proved the Talons of the end times are finally here. So here, That's where we get to in kind of the modern era. We'll talk a little bit about the 5th edition jump at this point. So, they do have some organization. They do live similar to wolf packs, the strongest, most able serving as alpha. Some septs are closed off to Hamid visitors. There is little global communication between them, although they have knowledge of the hidden moon bridges that connect them to their valued cairns. So they do connect together globally through cairns. Factions and camps are still human perversions. A division along philosophical boundaries is alien to them. Still, being out with human-thinking Garou and their even weaker kin, the Red Talon tribe has had some infiltration of these mentalities. So there are some camps. The Lodge of the Predator Kings believes it's time for compromises over, and all humans have to be slaughtered until no one is left. The Warders of the Land are moderates. They will kill any humans who trespass in their territory, but will not follow them beyond that. Basically, if you enter in their territory, you're dead, but if you don't leave us alone, we're really fine with leaving you. Whelp's compromise is an insult more than a political faction. They're the rare Red Talons that see some value in human inventions and believe not all humans should be killed. They're also called the Anti-Extinction Faction. The Dying Cubs is a secret group who use humans' suffering and torture to nurture Gaia and supposedly heal the wounds affected by her by humans. Their gifts may or may be taught by Banes. So... Anyway, let's talk a bit of culture when it comes to the Red Talons. They're close to nature. They shun cities, and exclusively living in the homelands they've lived for centuries. As humans encroach on their wilderness, they find their lands and hunting grounds disappearing and destroyed. There are few Talons that are comfortable with weaver things of any kind. Most see value in claves, and even a few appreciate the usefulness of a gun or telephone, but for the most part, they communicate via howls, fight with claws, and feel as they should be. Still, other tribes in the Talons have long memories, and no doubt recall rites and secrets long forgotten by the rest of them. As a rule, Talons eschew the use of human language unless absolutely required by their pack alpha. Most have enough proficiency in Garou tongue, but among them the Talons communicate in language of wolves, which works mostly over body language and other senses like scent. They're also the only tribe that cultivates special howl gifts that utilize their wolf howls in magnificent ways. Though not all Red Talons believe humanity should be entirely wiped out, they agree among their tribe members that humanity should be shunned. Those that dare cross path of the Talons, guilty or innocent, will be killed to stop the spread of the worm's taint. Many secretly devour the flesh of their victims. This does go against the litany set forth by the Garou nation, but, it's secret. In addition, some Red Talons that are in the younger side have taken to torturing their prey, akin to the way humans draw the suffering of them. There is a bloodline in Africa, the Kucha and Kuda, that made a pact with the Mokele to allow them to breed with African wild dogs that are native to that continent. In return, they promised to help protect Africa's wilderness and keep peace with the native pharaoh. They also follow Griffin and shun any contact with humans. In recent days, they've become part of the Ahadi in Africa, which I will have to talk about the Ahadi, and I don't know if there's enough extra to speak about Kucha and Kuda, but maybe I'll talk about them as a sub-bloodline at some point. They do have control of 5 major septs, or cairns. The Cauldron Rock Sept in southeast Washington State, the Sept of the Hidden Waters, a wandering seasonal oasis in the Arabian Desert, a Sept of the Howling Sands in Luxor, Egypt, Sept of the Weeping Daughter in the Wrangell Mountains in Alaska, and the Winter Forest Sept in the Siberian Forest in Russia. We do have to talk about their politics. We are reaching the back end of today in the discussion. So they come from entirely lupus stock. It's really only the last few decades they've been accepted metas that come from Talon maidens. Many Talon metas are still called at birth or given to children of Gaia to rear. To them, the metas are a result of the human side, since wolves do not practice recreational sex and thus were regarded with shame. Their Talons follow wolf traditions closely, using strength and survival to decide who rules them. Crimes against them go through no compromise. Those involved will be killed by wolves seeking justice. Challenges of rank are, in most cases, non-lethal. Now, they do have some beliefs. They're religious based on their culture. If you look up in the sky, whether through city night or forest, try to find a star, any star. If you're lucky, you can even see Luna herself up there. Imagine you have the power to punch the people concealing the pure sky from you. This is the source of Red Talons' rage. They can see the pure sky. They can live in pure, clean lands. But every day some idiot bulldozes 100 acres to set up another 200 cookie-cutter suburban houses. So it's obvious to them, kill the humans. It's what the other tribes refuse to do. The mind of Garou is comprised of two parts, a human mind and wolf heart. While the human mind can be learned, no Haman can learn to experience the wolf heart. Towns died by knowing the emotions of human mind, like jealousy, hatred, time, money, desire, greed, mercy, and those that are pure and come from the wolf heart. They do have a new relationship with the wild, seeing the wild as release, a reminder of how the world was before, when humans had not yet used the weaver's tools to ensnare it, and fallen under the worm's sway to defile it. Seeing the similarities between the wild themselves, towns often dictate themselves to strengthen the wild faces, pursuing alliance with wild spirits that other Garou would find dangerous. Some voices in their group even whisper the Red Talons are close to falling from Gaia to the wild, as the White Howers did not long ago. The Talons refused to consent to such claims, so yeah. You're gonna fall to the wild, which is not the worm or the weaver, but falling to any one of them is not your child of Gaia. Let's talk fiction. I do want to talk a little bit about it, because there are some interesting developments here that I feel like would add very well to the story. Granted, I'm going to preface this, I do not like the overarching narrative they're presenting in 5th edition. It's just like with Vampire 5th edition. I like some aspects of the story they tell. I dislike a bunch of aspects they don't tell. But I think there are places to wiggle around that, and I think some of the ideas here are good. I don't like the era of apocalypse things, where the apocalypse has happened and it's the end of the world and stuff. So, the Red Talons of 5th edition do accept human-born members because Wolfborn are rare, and it's the end of times. It's still Wolfborn is substantial, and rather than they've kind of changed their minds in 5th edition, which I do like. They, rather than viewing humanity as a blight on Gaia, they recognize humanity as much a product of nature and evolution as other things. They do believe that human society technologies become incompatible with global economy. So they wish to strip away the tools that humanity has grown reliant on and force them back in time where they can be not abuse of environment checked. Basically, rather than you are part of environment, but rather than, kill you all off, let's just put you back into being part of nature. So, yeah. Gaia's being mutilated, parcel out in the short-sightedness of humans, and the territory of Wolf and Wolfborn Garou is chipped away. And the Red Talons are a cornered and desperate animal. So they turn to strident actions to fight back and claim territory from human approach. They favor decisive solutions to the extent that even other werewolves think they are brutal. Razing a city to rubble would stop the sprawl that extends like cancer from it, for example. Tearing out the fur of a bulldoze operator is much more immediately effective than challenging zoning laws or devaluating corporate chiefs. So they still are the most radical of the Garou tribes, and they still advocate for the return of Imperium. And those who advocate the return of Imperium are considered only a subsection, as the remainder believe that keeping humanity in line for fear alone will only teach them to adapt once more and overcome their Garou predators. Humanity placed in harmony with the world around it, it just needs to be taught that fact by any means necessary. So fear is not the idea. There's a bunch of new learning that it's not fear that will teach them, it's not the Imperium. It's we've got to kind of drive them back to being part of nature itself. They need to be taught that. Of course, in the 5th edition timeline, the Garou nation's shattered, so, from the old nation, they're seen as heretical in a lot of ways. And the thing is, Red Talons think it's not the worm that's imbalanced element of the triad, but the weaver, and its ever-spanning restrictive and malign expansion on the former cities, development, civilization. And amongst the most extreme of them, even exposing such sentiment as is shameful. The worm is a victim of the weaver, and the worm's tools have their place. The extremist Red Talons are home to the wide variety of ideologies and perspective on Gaia, the Triad, and humanity, ranging from massively in terms of both focus and sincerity, even by the standards of already fractious Garou. So they still know the Imperium when they wage open war against humanity, and there are still some that would look for those good old days. But it is, they do believe it is oversimplified, and there's much more a place for humanity and Garou the natural order, and they have to redo it, rebalance it. So it's very interesting to see that the 5th edition version has almost of the Red Talons is focusing more on the Weaver as an enemy, and seeing the Weaver's influence on that almost as corrupting humanity more than the Worm has. Like, the Worm has its place. It's sort of like the Order, Growth, Order, Chaos, and, Growth, Order, Chaos, Decay, the kind of triad of the three of them, and finding that balance, and they're more believing the Weaver is out of balance now more in games. And I think there are very interesting points in the evolution of the Red Talons. I really do like learning about the Red Talons. And that's the kind of sad thing about it is, so much of when I read up and learn about the lore of W5, 5th edition Werewolf, I'm not really a fan of. Stuff like this, I am. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it today. And it's an interesting thing that I do think Red Talons are a very interesting group. And I like that we see very interesting evolution in them that I feel is a very complex and interesting one in 5th edition. Granted, it's at the price of a lot of more interesting lore and a depressing state on things. There's, like, and mechanically, I've had some complaints already about it. Not as much as Vampire 5th edition. It's that entire thing. I do think that the Red Talons, as they were very extreme in a lot of ways. It makes them difficult to honestly play in any group games unless you are playing a bunch of Red Talons. Doesn't mean you couldn't be a more moderate Red Talon in old werewolf games. But it is very interesting to see that, like, oh yeah, they don't speak human language very much. They don't use a lot of human tools. They're not really connected with cities and stuff, where that kind of werewolf stories take you on the edge of things, into the, suburbia, on the edge of civilization, dealing with a lot of these problems. And a traditional werewolf story is there still too. I don't know. I have a lot of opinions on a lot of things when it comes to the way that a lot of these stories are presented, especially with new editions and stuff here. But I do feel like this is one of those cases where 5th edition did a really good job of evolving the group. Like, I think it's one of those things is, maybe if nowadays I would run a werewolf storyline, I would probably take mostly where the W20 setup was, not go as far as some of the things in W5, but there are lore points like this I honestly would bring in. Again, it's sort of like with Vampire, going back to that, another World of Darkness, the Second Inquisition. I don't find the Second Inquisition terrible. I find that its expanse and its power to be way more than seems physically possible in the world we are now. For regular people not to learn about, the scope is too big. The idea of a Second Inquisition isn't bad. The scope it's been placed is insane. And that's why I think drawing it back in the Vampire world, that sure, you could cause some damage to the Vampire world, but the amount that it's supposed to... See, again, it's the same kind of thing. 5th edition just takes things to an extreme, and I'm not necessarily a fan of it. And some of the lore stuff I do think is really cool. And in this case, Red Talons, suggest it. It's cool. It's interesting. I honestly think if you're gonna even ignore a lot of W5 stuff, some of the stuff here with the Red Talons makes them much more of an interesting clan. You could be one of those rare new commons that's been brought in that you're like, you're of their bloodline to help keep them around, but you're an outsider. And you're like, seen at and maybe not completely shunned, but there's definitely a lot of people that would not like you. You're barely accepted into it, trying to make your way in this new evolution of the tribe itself. I see some really interesting stories. Alright, we're going to leave it there. I think that's a good place to... Alright, I'm going to give my shout-outs today. I'm going to get going. Remember, of course, to check me out live when I'm over at Twitch, or you can check me out over on YouTube. The schedule for either being live on Twitch or YouTube uploads. It's on my Twitter, Blue Sky, Twitter/X, Blue Sky, Discord, and I put it up on my YouTube channel every week. You can check it out, know what's going on, get an idea of when I'm recording stuff live or throwing it up on YouTube. Also, the social media is a great place to see updates and schedule, what's going on in my life, and tactics. Usually get some nice pictures of my kittens. Remember to do all the things I said at the beginning, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I haven't even played a Red Talon out there. I'm curious who has played a Red Talon, or played with someone who played Red Talon. Let me know your stories. I'm interested to kind of see what directions you took with it. I'm not necessarily uninspired by a Red Talon, but Red Talons feel like me, like the kind of one that it's a little bit more exact in the way I'm building a character, and I like a little bit more room in some of my ways when building things. I don't necessarily wouldn't build a Red Talon character, but it wouldn't be my first choice by far. I think that's everything. Remember to check out any of my live plays. I've had World of Darkness, I've had D&D, I've had Pathfinder. They're all off card now. I'll start with some new ones soon, and discuss a TikTok on Saturdays and 6. Check that out. Okay, I'm gonna get going. I think that's all my shout-outs. You know, all of you out there, until we dive back into the World of Darkness again, Werewolf, one of the other worlds, I hope you all have a great and wonderful day, and until the next time you join me, I bid you all out there adieu, and wonderful farewell.